Would Big still be alive if it wasn't for Long Kiss Goodnight? Hey yo. So let's talk about the song Long Kiss Goodnight then. Or rather, let's go over all of the subliminal lines and sneak disses that Big throws at Pac as well as other rivals. Before I get into it, let me just start off by saying that this isn't going to be a line-by-line breakdown of the entire song. I only just want to go over a few lines and the context around them. Also, per some of the comments in my last video, I'm well aware that this is all over 20 years ago. It's old news, but I'm a content creator and I talk about this type of stuff, so here we are. Thanks for the engagement nonetheless. So a lot of people aren't aware that the beat may sound familiar to some people. That's the same beat that Mobb Deep used for LA LA when they responded to the Dog Pound's New York, New York.
LA, LA, big city of dreams, but everything in LA ain't always what it seems.
Before Big starts even rapping, he's already set a tone for what you're gonna hear later on. But the Mobb Deep connection doesn't stop there, and there'll be more on that later. But speaking of the word later,
laugh now, cry later, I rhyme greater.
Now this is the first line that I want to highlight because a lot of people do point to this line as a direct shot at Pac because Pac had a tattoo on his back that said laugh now, cry later, and Big referencing it in the way that he does is, you know, his way of saying that he's a better rapper than Pac. But I don't know, you can take what you want with that. You can choose to believe it was a shot, or you can choose to believe that he was just rapping, whatever.
I used to be as strong as Triple B, to little C's cripple me.
Now this line strikes me as interesting because this line establishes a definitive timeline of when this song was recorded. This line was in direct reference to the car accident that Big and Lil C's had gotten into sometime in September of 1996. A car accident in which Big's left leg was shattered, and since then, up until his death, he had to walk around with a cane. Earlier that month, Tupac was shot and killed.
3 days after he died, I was in a car accident. I was in the hospital for 3 months.
Which means Big recorded to put on the Life After Death album in 1997, sometime after Tupac passed away. And I can already hear the arguments against this. A lot of people saying, oh, Big must have wrote that song before Pac died or whatever. Big never wrote his songs, at least not physically. Many Big fans and hip-hop fans in general know that Big used to write his lyrics in his head, go in the studio, and then rap them as if he was freestyling. And it would only be done on the days that he was recording.
Y'all know the rules, move from BK to New Jerusalem.
Now this line strikes me as interesting because I feel like this was a subliminal shot at J. Rue the Damager, who was one of his other rivals during that time.
I want my spot back, take 2. Motherfuckers mad cause I'm blue, niggas envy us. Too many niggas on my dick, shit strenuous.
And I've seen bare people interpret this line as also a direct shot at Pac, simply because, you know, Pac comes out of jail, he drops All Eyes on Me and becomes the #1 guy in rap up until his passing, and now Big wants his spot back and he's saying take 2 because, you know, the word 2 or the number 2 is in Tupac's name, and take 2 meaning take Tupac. But here's the thing. During this time, there was a battle for New York supremacy. Who's the king of New York? And like I said, Big had other rivals outside of Pac. There was J. Rue, there was Nas, Raekwon, and Ghostface. Which, by the way, I'm now starting to believe that that gold teeth line in Dangerous MCs / The Ugliest was a shot at Raekwon, not ODB.
When my men bust, you just move with such stamina. Slugs missed ya, I ain't mad at ya, ain't mad at ya.
Now this is the line that does it. This is the line that lets you know that Big was firmly and directly talking about Tupac. But how do you know that? Well, whenever Tupac referred to the quad incident where he got shot 5 times and survived, he usually mentions the fact that the shooters missed.
I just want to tell you, you missed, motherfucker.
Tell them tricks that shot me, that they missed, they ain't kill me.
That's usually how he taunted the people who shot him, the people who set up the shooting, and the people who he believed knew about the shooting before it even happened.
You owe me more than to turn his head and act like he didn't know niggas was about to blow my fucking head off. He knew.
And of course, Big saying, we ain't mad at ya, couldn't make it more obvious than that.
Catch cases, come out frontin', smoking something.
Now this line is also a very interesting one, and I do believe that in some way, form, or fashion, he was throwing shots at Pac here. A lot of people, even to this day, are of the opinion that when Tupac came out of jail and was signed to Death Row Records, he was putting on this gangster persona and acting like somebody he wasn't. In other words, frontin'. And maybe Big harbored those same opinions.
First, they tough. Then something happened to them. They turn to God. Then, when everything's cool, they tough again.
I mean, Puff sure did.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up. Give him a round of applause. The Academy Award goes to the actor
I'm flaming gats, aiming at me fucking maniacs. Put my name in rap. What the game is that? Like they hustle backwards. I smoke backwards in Dutchies. You can't touch me. Try to rush me. Slugs go touchy touchy. You're bleeding lovely with your spirit above me or beneath me. Your whole life you live sneaky. Now you rest eternally sleepy. You burn when you creep me. Rest where the worms and the weak be. My 9 lives baptized rap guys.
While I only really wanted to highlight the first few lines and the last few lines of that, I couldn't just not let that part play because that is my favorite big verse of all time, simply because of that flow. Now to this line,
aiming at me fucking maniacs. Put my name in rap. What the game is that? Like they hustle backwards.
sure, there may have been a few people who put Big's names in their rhymes, either dissing him or bigging him up, but who was the one who did it on a more consistent basis? And to this line,
My 9 lives baptized rap guys.
remember when I talked about that Mobb Deep connection? Right here, Big is interpolating a similar line that Prodigy of Mobb Deep uses on a song called Drop a Gem on Him.
Side of rap guys, disappear, shut eyes, and swole up your whole outside. I baptize, niggas get wet.
For those who don't know, Drop a Gem on Him was Mobb Deep's response to Tupac's Hit 'Em Up. So now think about the layers for a moment. Not only is Big rapping over the same beat that Mobb Deep used to respond to the Dog Pound, who was also on Death Row with Tupac, but Big is also in this song referencing lines that Mobb Deep used on a song directed towards the person that they all had problems with. How could that not be a sneak diss? Now, if you made it this far into the video, I want to end this with a question, with something to think about, something to mull over. But I'm going to do what I do best and apply some context. On March 1st, 1997, Notorious B.I.G. was on the Wake Up Morning Show with Sway. In his interview, he briefly spoke about Tupac and then gave a freestyle where he rapped lyrics from Long Kiss Goodnight. And in case you're wondering,
When my men bust, you just move with such stamina. Slugs missed ya. I ain't mad at ya.
he was shot and killed 8 days later. In the wake of Tupac's death, it was a very intense and tumultuous time in hip-hop. West Coast artists were afraid to go out to the East Coast and vice versa. With the public and the media and the streets running around with the narrative that Tupac's death was the result of the East Coast-West Coast rivalry, and with Big choosing to go out to LA to not only promote life after death, but to somehow ease the tension between East and West, one still has to ask the question,